The phone slipped from my trembling hands and clattered against the kitchen tile. I didn't move to pick it up. I couldn't. My legs had turned to water, my breath caught somewhere between my lungs and throat, refusing to move in either direction. On the floor, the screen still glowed, still showed the paused image that had turned my entire world inside out. My husband's face. His mother's cruel smile. And between them, though, I couldn't think about it. Not yet. Not while my heart was trying to hammer its way out of my chest. The timestamp on the video read 12:47 p.m. Just 12 minutes. 12 minutes that I'd watched, unable to look away, unable to believe what I was seeing. 12 minutes before everything changed. Before the worst thing happened. I should have told him the camera was working again. I should have mentioned that the technician came yesterday while he was at work. Such a small thing. Such an insignificant detail. But I forgot. And now I knew the truth. Now I knew what my husband and his mother had been doing in our home. In our bedroom. With our daughter. My stomach lurched and I barely made it to the sink before I vomited. This is my story. This is how my perfect life shattered into 1,000 pieces. And this is how I made them pay for every single one. Before we continue, please write in the comment which country you are watching this video. We love knowing where our global family is tuning in from. And if this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe. Your support helps us bring even more epic revenge tales of life. Enjoy listening. 3 days earlier, I was still living in blissful ignorance. Mrs. Fletcher? This is Ryan from Secure Home Tech. I'm calling about your service request for the malfunctioning camera. I balanced the phone between my ear and shoulder while folding tiny pink onesies, still warm from the dryer. The nursery smelled like baby powder and lavender, the scent of the new life we'd built together. My daughter, Sharon, cooed softly in her crib, her small fists waving at the mobile dancing above her. Oh yes, I said, setting down a onesie covered in little elephants. The one in the master bedroom has been on the fritz for about 2 weeks now. My husband kept saying he'd look at it, but you know how men are with these things. Ryan chuckled politely. I have an opening tomorrow afternoon around 1. Would that work? I pulled up my mental calendar. Tomorrow was Thursday. My husband, Miles, would be at work. His mother, Martha, had her weekly bridge club. It would just be me and Sharon. That's perfect, I said. Great. I'll see you then, Mrs. Fletcher. I hung up and returned to my folding, completely unaware that I'd just set in motion the sequence of events that would destroy everything I thought I knew. Let me tell you about my life before everything fell apart. Let me paint you a picture of what I thought I had so you can understand the depth of what I lost. Miles and I met 7 years ago at a charity fundraiser. He was handsome in that clean-cut all-American way, strong jaw, warm brown eyes, a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He worked in finance, made good money, and came from what I thought was a respectable family. His mother, Martha, was a prominent figure in our small Connecticut town, always organizing fundraisers and sitting on various boards. I was a kindergarten teacher, younger than Miles by 6 years and admittedly a bit naive. When he pursued me with flowers and romantic dinners and promises of the life we'd build together, I fell hard and fast. We married after a year of dating. The wedding was everything a girl could dream of. Martha made sure of that, though she controlled every detail from the flower arrangements to my dress. I should have seen it then, the way she needed to have her hands in everything, the way Miles never questioned her, never told her no. But I was in love. I was young. I thought her involvement meant she accepted me as part of the family. For the first 5 years we were happy. Or at least I thought we were. Miles worked long hours, but he always came home to me. We bought a beautiful colonial house with a white picket fence in the suburbs. We talked about starting a family. Martha visited often. Too often I sometimes thought, but I pushed the feeling away. She was his mother. He meant well. That's what Miles always said when I gently tried to suggest we needed more privacy. She means well, Claire. She's just lonely since Dad passed. So I smiled through her unexpected visits, her criticisms disguised as helpful suggestions. Her way of rearranging my kitchen cabinets because, this makes more sense, dear. Then I got pregnant. Sharon was born on a crisp October morning, weighing 7 pounds and 4 ounces. She was perfect. The most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. When they placed her in my arms, I felt a love so fierce it frightened me. I would do anything for this child. Anything. Miles seemed happy too. He took the requisite 2 weeks of paternity leave, helped with late-night feedings, took hundreds of photos. Martha practically moved in for the first month, showing me the right way to do everything from bathing Sharon to swaddling her. I was exhausted, hormonal, overwhelmed. I told myself her presence was helpful, even when her constant corrections made me feel inadequate. Even when she'd take Sharon from my arms saying, "Let me show you how it's done." Even when I'd wake up in the night to find her in the nursery holding my daughter, whispering things I couldn't hear. "She's just excited to be a grandmother," Miles would say when I tried to talk to him about it. "You're being oversensitive, Claire. Postpartum hormones, probably." So I swallowed my discomfort and tried to be grateful. The security cameras were Martha's idea. "For safety," she insisted. "You never know these days. Home invasions, burglaries. And with a baby in the house." Miles agreed immediately. They had them installed while I was at a doctor's appointment with Sharon. 4 cameras. 1 in the living room, 1 in the nursery, 1 at the front door, and 1 in our bedroom. I didn't like the bedroom one. It felt invasive, uncomfortable. But Miles said it was just for security and we could always turn it off when we wanted privacy. The footage saved to a cloud server that we could access on our phones. 2 weeks ago that bedroom camera stopped working. The app showed a connection error message. Miles said he'd fix it. He never did. Ryan showed up exactly at 1 p.m. on Thursday, a pleasant man in his 30s with a tool belt and a professional demeanor. "Shouldn't take long," he said, heading upstairs to the bedroom with me following behind, Sharon strapped to my chest in her carrier. He fiddled with the camera mounted in the corner, checking connections, doing something with his tablet. I stood in the doorway watching, thinking about what I needed to make for dinner. "Here's your problem," he said after a few minutes. The wire was loose. "Looks like it might have been disconnected manually, actually." "Manually?" I frowned. "How?" "Someone would have had to unplug it right here." He pointed to a small port on the side of the camera, barely visible. "It's not something that would happen on its own." A small flutter of unease moved through my chest, but I dismissed it. "That's strange. Must have happened when we were cleaning or something." "Maybe," Ryan said, though his tone suggested he didn't quite believe it. "Anyway, it's fixed now. Working perfectly. See." He showed me his tablet and I saw our bedroom displayed in real time, saw myself standing in the doorway holding Sharon. "The footage saves to your cloud account automatically, right?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "That's how we have it set up." "Good. You're all set then, Mrs. Fletcher." He packed up his tools and headed out. I should have told Miles that night when he came home. It would have been so easy. "Hey, the technician came today. The bedroom camera is working again." But I didn't. He seemed distracted, stressed about some project at work. We ate dinner mostly in silence while Martha, who had inexplicably decided to join us, filled the quiet with chatter about her bridge club and the town council meeting. After dinner, I gave Sharon her bath, nursed her to sleep, and was so exhausted I barely managed to brush my teeth before collapsing into bed. I forgot about the camera. It was such a small thing to forget. Friday morning started like any other. Miles left for work at 7:30, kissing me and Sharon goodbye at the door. Martha called around 9, saying she'd come by in the afternoon to help out. "You don't need to," I said, trying to keep the weariness from my voice. "I'm managing fine." "Nonsense. I'll be there around 2. She hung up before I could protest further. I spent the morning cleaning, doing laundry, playing with Sharon on her activity mat. She was 3 months old now, just starting to smile real smiles, not just gas. Her whole face would light up when she saw me, and my heart would melt every single time. Around noon, I made myself lunch and settled on the couch with my phone while Sharon napped. I was scrolling mindlessly through social media when I remembered the camera. I should check if it's working properly, I thought. Make sure Ryan really fixed it. I opened the Secure Home app and navigated to the camera list. All 4 showed green active status. Perfect. But then I saw something that made me pause. The bedroom camera had 47 hours of saved footage from the past 2 days. That's odd, I thought. Miles and I barely spent any time in the bedroom except to sleep. Why would there be so much activity? Curious, I clicked on the footage from yesterday, Thursday, the day Ryan fixed the camera. The video started at 1:32 p.m., right after the technician left. The timestamp was clear in the corner. I watched myself exit the bedroom with Sharon, saw the empty room, nothing happening. I fast-forwarded, watching the minutes tick by. 2 p.m. 2:30 p.m. Still nothing. Then at 2:47 p.m. the bedroom door opened. I stopped fast-forwarding and watched in real time. Martha walked into our bedroom. Alone. My eyebrows rose. This was during the time I'd taken Sharon for a walk in the stroller. But why was Martha in our bedroom? She'd said she had bridge club that afternoon. She looked around carefully, almost furtively, then walked to my dresser. She opened the top drawer, my underwear drawer, and began going through it. What the hell? I sat up straighter, my heart beginning to beat faster. I watched as Martha pulled out pairs of my underwear, examining them, then putting them back. Her face wore an expression I'd never seen before, cold, calculating, almost satisfied. Then she moved to Miles's nightstand, opened the drawer, pulled out something. I squinted at my phone screen. It was a small bottle. I recognized it after a moment. Melatonin. Miles took it sometimes for sleep. Martha pocketed the bottle and left the room. I sat there, stunned. What was she doing? Why was she going through our things? But that wasn't even the worst of it. I kept watching, fast-forwarding again. At 6:15 p.m., during dinner when she'd been sitting at our table, the bedroom was empty. Then came the footage from last night. 11:47 p.m. Miles and I entered the bedroom, both exhausted. I watched us get ready for bed, feeling slightly uncomfortable watching myself on camera. We climbed into bed, turned off the lights. I fast-forwarded through the hours of darkness, the timestamp rolling through the early morning hours. Then at 3:23 a.m. the bedroom door opened again. I stopped fast-forwarding. Watched. Martha crept into our dark bedroom like a ghost in her white nightgown. My blood went cold. What the? I watched as she approached the bed where Miles and I slept, completely unaware. She stood there for a long moment just watching us. The camera had night vision so I could see her face clearly, illuminated in that eerie green glow. She was smiling. Then she moved to my side of the bed. Leaned down close to my sleeping face. So close. She whispered something. I couldn't hear what. The cameras didn't record audio. But I could see her lips moving, could see the expression of pure malice on her face. My hands were shaking now, gripping my phone so hard my knuckles went white. Martha straightened up, looked at Miles's sleeping form with an expression of such strange tenderness it made my skin crawl, then left the room as quietly as she'd entered. Jesus Christ. She'd been in our bedroom while we slept, standing over me, whispering to my unconscious body. I felt violated in a way I'd never experienced before. My home, my bedroom, my most private space, she'd invaded it like it was her right. I should have stopped watching right then. I should have called Miles, confronted Martha, done something. But I didn't. Something made me keep watching. Some instinct that whispered this isn't all of it. There's more. So I clicked on this morning's footage. Friday. Today. And that's when my entire world collapsed. The footage started at 8:15 a.m., about 45 minutes after Miles left for work. The bedroom was empty. I was downstairs with Sharon, I remembered. We were eating breakfast. At 8:47 a.m., Miles walked into the bedroom. I frowned at the screen. No, that was impossible. Miles left for work at 7:30. I kissed him goodbye. I'd watched his car pull out of the driveway. But there he was, clear as day, entering our bedroom. He was on his phone talking to someone. He paced the room and even without audio I could tell he was agitated about something. Then he nodded, said something final and hung up. He stood there for a moment, running his hand through his hair in that way he did when he was stressed. Then he started undressing. My stomach dropped. What was happening? Why was he home? Why was he undressing? He stripped down to his boxers, then climbed into our bed. Our bed that we'd both gotten out of just an hour earlier. He arranged himself on top of the covers, lying on his back. Then he waited. I couldn't breathe. My mind was racing, trying to understand what I was seeing. At 8:52 a.m., the bedroom door opened again. Martha walked in. She was wearing a silk robe I'd never seen before, her hair down and styled. She'd put on makeup. She looked at Miles in the bed and her face. Oh God, her face. It was the look of a woman looking at her lover. No, I whispered to my empty living room. No, no, no. Miles smiled at her. Held out his hand. He took it. And then my husband's mother climbed into bed with my husband. Her son. The phone slipped in my sweating hands. I caught it, unable to look away, unable to process what I was seeing. They were kissing. Miles and Martha were kissing, And it wasn't a peck on the cheek or a motherly kiss on the forehead. It was deep, passionate, sexual. My vision blurred. I realized tears were streaming down my face. This isn't real, part of my brain insisted. This can't be real. Some kind of trick, some kind of editing, it can't be. But it was real. I was watching it happen in real-time timestamps in my bedroom in my bed. Martha straddled Miles and he pulled her robe open. His hands moved over her body with practiced familiarity. This wasn't the first time. The way they moved together, the way they touched each other, they'd done this before. Many times before. How long? The question screamed through my mind. How long has this been happening? I watched in horrified disbelief as they had sex in my bed. The bed where I slept every night. The bed where Sharon had been conceived. The bed where I'd nursed my daughter just this morning. The timestamp ticked forward. I couldn't look away, trapped in the nightmare unfolding on my screen. 8:53 a.m. 8:54 a.m. 8:55 a.m. They were talking between kisses. I could see their mouths moving, forming words I couldn't hear but desperately needed to know. What were they saying? Were they talking about me? Laughing at me? 9:02 a.m. They finished. Lay together in the tangled sheets, Martha's head on Miles's chest. His fingers traced patterns on her bare shoulder. The tenderness of the gesture made me want to scream. 9:04 a.m. Martha sat up, said something. Miles nodded. She got out of bed and walked toward the camera. For a terrifying moment, I thought she was going to look right into it, right at me across time and space. But she walked to the dresser instead. My dresser. She opened the bottom drawer, the one where I kept extra blankets, and pulled something out. A baby blanket. Pink with white stars. The one my mother had made for Sharon when she was born. My heart stopped. Martha held up the blanket, said something to Miles. He sat up in bed, his expression changing to something I couldn't quite read. Serious. Intent. Martha folded the blanket carefully, reverently, and held it against her chest. Then she said something that made Miles get out of bed. 9:06 a.m. He pulled on his boxers and walked out of the room. Martha followed, still holding Sharon's blanket. I couldn't breathe. Every instinct I had was screaming danger. Where were they going? I was about to switch to the nursery camera when they reappeared in the bedroom. 9:08 a.m. Miles was holding Sharon. My baby. My 3-month-old daughter. He was holding her, and Martha was spreading the pink blanket on the bed. No. The word came out as a whimper. Please, no. Miles laid Sharon on the blanket in the center of our bed. She was awake, her little arms and legs moving. She was wearing the yellow onesie I dressed her in that morning. That morning. This morning. This had happened just hours ago while I was downstairs, while I thought Sharon was safely asleep in her crib. How had they gotten her without me hearing? How had Miles gotten back into the house? The spare key. The one we kept in the fake rock by the front door. Martha knew about it. They'd planned this. 9:09 a.m. Martha knelt on the bed beside Sharon, looking down at her with an expression of such twisted adoration it made me feel sick. She reached out and touched Sharon's face. Stroked her hair. Miles stood on the other side looking down at them both. Then Martha started undressing Sharon. No. I screamed at the phone. No. Don't touch her. But I was screaming at a recording. At something that had already happened hours ago. At events I was powerless to stop because they'd already occurred. Martha removed Sharon's onesie, her diaper, until my baby was completely naked on the bed. Sharon started crying. I could see her mouth open in a wail, could see her little face scrunch up in distress. Martha picked her up, cradled her, and began nursing her. My stomach heaved. Martha was holding my daughter to her breast, mimicking breastfeeding, and Miles was watching with an expression of such sick satisfaction. I couldn't watch anymore. I scrambled off the couch and ran to the bathroom, vomiting until there was nothing left, my body trying to purge itself of the images burned into my brain. But I had to keep watching. I had to know what happened. I stumbled back to the living room, picked up my phone with shaking hands. 9:11 a.m. Martha was still holding Sharon, rocking her while Miles got dressed. He was putting on his work clothes, the same ones he'd left in that morning. He'd never gone to work. He'd driven away, parked somewhere nearby, waited for me to be distracted, then snuck back in. How many times had he done this? Martha handed Sharon back to Miles. He held her for a moment, kissed her forehead, then 9:12 a.m. He left the room with her. Martha stayed behind, straightening the bed, smoothing the blanket. She got dressed again, fixed her hair in our mirror. At 9:14 a.m. Miles reappeared. Without Sharon. He must have put her back in her crib. I'd gone to check on her around 9:30 and she'd been sleeping peacefully. I'd thought she'd been there the whole time. I thought my baby was safe. 9:15 a.m. Miles and Martha stood together in our bedroom. They kissed once more, quick and casual, like a married couple saying goodbye before work. Then Miles left. Martha stayed for another minute, looking around the room with a small, satisfied smile. She walked to the camera. My heart seized, and for one horrible second she looked directly into it. Could she see that it was fixed? Did she know? But then she turned away and left the room. At 9:47 a.m. she'd called me, saying she'd come by at 2 to help out. To check on me. To make sure I didn't suspect anything. I don't remember dropping my phone. I don't remember falling to my knees on the kitchen floor. I don't remember the sounds that came out of me. Animal sounds, broken sounds, the sounds of a soul being ripped apart. When I finally came back to myself, I don't know how much time had passed. My throat was raw. My face was wet. My whole body was shaking so violently my teeth chattered. I ran upstairs, taking the steps 2 at a time, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst from my chest. I crashed into the nursery and found her exactly as I'd left her before I started watching the video. Sleeping peacefully in her crib, her tiny chest rising and falling, her rosebud mouth slightly open. I scooped her up, cradling her against my chest, sobbing into her soft hair. She stirred, making a small sound of protest at being woken, but didn't cry. "I'm sorry," I whispered over and over. "I'm so sorry, baby. Mommy's so sorry." Sorry for what? For not knowing? For not protecting her? For bringing her into this house of horrors, into this family of monsters? I carried her back downstairs, unable to let her go, unable to put her down. I needed to feel her warmth, her realness, needed to know she was safe in my arms. My phone was still on the floor where I'd dropped it. I picked it up with one hand, Sharon clutched against me with the other. I needed to call someone. The police. A lawyer. My parents. Someone. But my hands were shaking too badly. I couldn't think. Couldn't process. What had I just watched? My husband was having an incestuous relationship with his mother. That was, Jesus Christ, that was sick enough on its own. How long? Since before we met? During our marriage? The way they touched each other, it had to have been going on for years. But Sharon. What they'd done with Sharon. They hadn't molested her. I'd watched carefully, and at least there was that. But Martha had undressed her, had simulated nursing her, had exposed her and touched her and involved her in their. I couldn't even think the words. Why would they do that? Was Martha delusional? Did she think Sharon was her baby with Miles? Was this some sick fantasy? And Miles. Miles had participated. Had held his daughter, our daughter, and brought her into his mother's twisted game. The man I'd married. The man I'd loved. The man I'd trusted with my child. I looked at Sharon's innocent face and something inside me hardened. I would protect her. Whatever it took, whatever I had to do, I would protect my daughter from these monsters. But first I needed to think. I needed to plan. Because if I went to the police now, what would happen? I tried to think through the haze of shock and horror. I'd have the video evidence. That was something. But what crime had they actually committed? They'd had an affair, gross and incestuous, but both were adults. They'd undressed Sharon and what? Played some sick game with her? It was wrong. It was so wrong. But would it be enough to press charges? Would they take Sharon away from me during an investigation? Would I have to prove I didn't know, wasn't complicit? And even if they did arrest Miles and Martha, what then? A trial? Where everyone in our small town would know what happened. Where Sharon would grow up with everyone knowing this about her family. No, I couldn't just call the police. I needed to be smart about this. I needed revenge. The thought crystallized in my mind, clear and cold and certain. They had violated my home, my marriage, my child. They had played me for a fool, had used my trust and naivety against me. They would pay. But how? I started pacing the living room, Sharon still in my arms, my mind racing. I had video evidence of everything. They didn't know the camera was working. That was my advantage. What else did I have? I thought about our finances. Miles made good money, but I had access to all our accounts. We'd set it up that way for convenience. I paid the bills, managed the household expenses. I thought about our house. It was in both our names. I thought about Martha. What did I know about her that could be used against her? I needed time. Time to plan, time to prepare. Which meant I had to pretend everything was normal. The thought made me feel sick, but I knew it was true. If I confronted them now, emotional and unprepared, they'd manipulate me. Gaslight me. Miles had been doing it for years. Dismissing my concerns about his mother, making me feel oversensitive, crazy. But I would play their game. I would smile and pretend, and while they thought I was the same naive fool I'd always been, I would systematically destroy them both. The doorbell rang. I froze, looking at the clock. 2 p.m. Martha. Every fiber of my being screamed at me not to answer. I couldn't face her. Couldn't look at her without seeing what I'd seen on that video. But if I didn't answer, she'd know something was wrong. She had a key, she'd let herself in. I took a deep breath. Then another. I could do this. I had to do this. For Sharon. I walked to the door and opened it. Martha stood there in her usual expensive clothes, perfectly coiffed hair, warm smile. "Hello, dear," she said brightly. "How are my girls today?" It took everything I had not to slam the door in her face. Not to scream. Not to claw at her lying, smiling face. Yet I smiled back. "We're good," I said, my voice only shaking slightly. "Come in." The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. Martha settled herself on my couch like she owned it, chattering away about her bridge club, about the charity gala next month, about the new restaurant that opened downtown. I sat across from her, Sharon in my arms, and played my part. I nodded. I smiled. I made appropriate responses. All while my mind screamed. All while I looked at her and saw her in my bed with Miles. Saw her hands on my daughter. "Claire, dear, you look pale," Martha said at one point, her face arranged in false concern. "Are you feeling all right?" "Just tired," I said. Sharon was up a lot last night. She wasn't. She'd slept through the night for the first time in weeks. But Martha didn't know that. Of course, of course. Martha stood up and reached for Sharon. "Let me take her. You should rest." Every instinct I had screamed a no. I held Sharon tighter. "That's okay," I said, forcing lightness into my voice. "We're fine. Actually, I think she needs to nurse soon." Martha's face flickered with something. Annoyance? Anger? Before smoothing back into her pleasant mask. "Well, if you're sure. I just want to help." "I know. Thank you." She stayed another 45 minutes. I thought I would shatter from the tension, from keeping my face neutral, my voice steady. Finally, she stood to leave. "I'll see you Sunday for dinner," she said at the door. "Tell Miles I'm making his favorite pot roast." Sunday dinner. A weekly tradition at Martha's house that I'd always found exhausting. I'd never have to endure another one. "Sounds lovely," I lied. He kissed my cheek. Her lips on my skin felt like acid. Then she was gone. I closed the door, locked it, and collapsed against it, my whole body trembling. I'd done it. I'd fooled her. I could do this. Over the next few days, I became someone I didn't recognize. On the surface, I was the same Claire. Loving wife, devoted mother, dutiful daughter-in-law. I smiled when Miles came home from work. I asked about his day. I made his favorite meals. I let him hold Sharon, though it took every ounce of willpower I had not to snatch her away from his lying, perverted hands. At night, when he reached for me in bed, I feigned illness. Headaches. Exhaustion. He seemed frustrated but didn't push it. I wondered if he was getting what he needed from his mother instead. The thought made me want to vomit every time. But beneath the surface, I was working. First, I went through all the security footage. Every hour of every day since the camera had been fixed. Thursday at 3:23 a.m. Martha creeping into our bedroom, standing over me. Friday morning, the incident with Sharon. But there was more. Friday evening, while I was giving Sharon a bath, Miles had gone into our bedroom and made a phone call. He turned away from the door, spoke quietly. I couldn't read his lips, but his body language was intimate, affectionate. Calling Martha? Or someone else? Saturday morning, while I'd gone to the grocery store with Sharon, the camera caught Miles and Martha together again. They'd had sex in my bed again, then Martha had gone into the nursery. She'd stood over Sharon's crib for 10 minutes, just watching her sleep. The footage made my blood run cold. Sunday, the day we'd had dinner at Martha's house, there was footage from before we left. Miles had gone upstairs, supposedly to change clothes. He'd actually called someone. That same intimate body language. I saved all of it. Backed it up to 3 different locations. This was my ammunition. But I needed more than just evidence of an affair. I needed to destroy them completely. So I started digging into their lives. I went through Miles's computer while he was at work, using the password I'd always known. His email revealed regular correspondence with Martha. Nothing explicit, but the tone was wrong. Too familiar. Pet names that made my skin crawl. I found a folder buried deep in his files. It was encrypted, but Miles had never been as tech-savvy as he thought. His password was Sharon's birthday. Inside were photos. Photos of Martha. Hundreds of them going back years. Some were innocent. Family photos, holiday pictures. But others were explicit. Pornographic. And they were dated. I checked the metadata. The oldest ones were from 15 years ago. 15 years. Before he met me. This had been going on since he was in his 20s, maybe younger. I thought I'd reached the limit of how disgusted I could feel, but I was wrong. There were also photos of me. Sleeping. Dressing. Private moments I'd never consented to being photographed. And recent photos of Sharon. Just her sleeping, her playing. Nothing explicit. But the fact that they were in this folder with the photos of Martha. I barely made it to the bathroom before I vomited. But I copied everything. Every sick, twisted photo. Every email. I went through our financial records next. Bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts. And I found discrepancies. Money being moved from our joint account to an account I didn't recognize. Not huge amounts. A few hundred here, 1,000 there. But regular. Consistent. I traced the account number. It belonged to Martha. Miles had been giving his mother money. Our money. Money I earned from my teaching, money that should have gone to Sharon's college fund or our mortgage. How much total? I added it up. $47,000 over the course of our marriage. I made copies of everything. Then I started looking into Martha's life. She was a prominent citizen, sure. On the boards of several charities. Respected in the community. But I dug deeper. I contacted a private investigator. A woman I found through a discreet online search. I paid her in cash, met her in a coffee shop 2 towns over. Her name was Rachel and she was professional, efficient, and asked no questions beyond what she needed to know. I need to know everything about this woman, I said, sliding Martha's information across the table. Her finances, her history, anything that could be damaging. Rachel looked at the information, then at me. She must have seen something in my face. The hollow eyes, the barely controlled rage. Divorce case, she asked. Something like that. I'll have preliminary findings in a week. She had them in 5 days. Martha's financial situation was not what it appeared to be. She lived in a large house, drove an expensive car, wore designer clothes. But she was drowning in debt. Credit cards maxed out. A second mortgage on her house. Collections notices. Where was the money going? Rachel had found some of it. Gambling debts. Martha had a problem with online poker, apparently. Who knew? But there was more money missing than the gambling could account for. Rachel kept digging. And she found it. Martha had another bank account. A secret one. And in that account were regular deposits from Miles. The money he'd been taking from us he was giving to his mother. But it wasn't for bills or to help her out. It was payments. I stared at Rachel's report, not understanding at first. Payments for what? Then I saw the dates. The deposits corresponded with dates Miles had traveled for work conferences. Dates he'd been gone overnight. They'd been taking trips together. Weekend getaways to hotels in other cities where no one knew them. I had her find the hotels. Had her get records if she could. Rachel was good at her job. She came back with hotel receipts. Rooms booked under fake names, but credit card numbers that matched Miles's business card. They'd been doing this for years. Romantic weekends. Playing house. While I was at home, pregnant and then caring for our infant daughter, he'd been taking his mother to hotels and pretending she was his wife. The enormity of the deception was staggering. But it also gave me power. Because now I had everything I needed. I spent days crafting my revenge. It had to be perfect. Surgical. Devastating. I wanted them to lose everything just like they'd made me lose everything. My plan had 3 phases. Phase 1. Financial destruction. I started transferring money from our joint accounts into a new account I'd opened in my name only. Not all of it, that would raise red flags. But significant amounts moved gradually over several days. I liquidated our investment accounts, took early withdrawal penalties. The money went into my private account. I contacted a divorce attorney, the best one in the state according to my research. Her name was Elizabeth Grant, and she was famous for destroying unfaithful husbands. I showed her everything. The videos. The photos. The financial records. She watched the footage of Miles and Martha in silence, her expression growing harder. When it was done, she looked at me. "I'll take your case," she said. "And when I'm done, he won't have a cent to his name." We filed papers. But we didn't serve Miles yet. That would come later at the right moment. I also contacted Martha's creditors. Anonymously, I let them know about her secret bank account, the one she'd been hiding from them. They were very interested to learn about it. Phase 2. Social destruction. Martha's reputation in our community meant everything to her. She'd built her entire identity around being this pillar of respectability. I would tear it all down. I created anonymous email accounts, untraceable, and I started sending emails to the boards of the charities Martha served on, with detailed allegations of financial impropriety, not entirely fabricated, based on Rachel's findings about her gambling and debts. To the members of her bridge club, with innocent-seeming questions about Martha's frequent absences, her strange behavior. I planted seeds of doubt. Let whispers start. I also compiled all the evidence, videos, photos, everything, into a comprehensive file. I made multiple copies, stored them in different locations. I would release this information publicly. But not yet. The timing had to be perfect. Phase 3. Legal destruction. This was the most important part. I had evidence of Miles and Martha's incestuous relationship. I had evidence of them involving Sharon in their sick games. I contacted Child Protective Services. Filed a report. Anonymous at first, just to get a case number to create a record. Then I contacted my attorney again. "I want full custody," I said. "I want a restraining order. I want him to never be able to see Sharon again without supervised visitation, if at all." "With this evidence," Elizabeth said, "we can make that happen. And I want his parental rights terminated." She looked at me carefully. "That's a high bar to clear. Can it be done? With what we have?" "Yes. I believe it can." "Then do it." I also filed a police report. Brought the videos to a detective. The crime was murky. What they'd done with Sharon wasn't clear-cut molestation. But it was child endangerment. It was contributing to the delinquency. It was something. The detective, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a steel spine, watched the footage. "Jesus Christ," she muttered. Then she looked at me. "We'll investigate. I'll be honest, it's complicated. But at minimum, we can pursue charges related to the child endangerment and the deception." It was enough. Everything was in place. I just needed to light the match. I chose Sunday dinner at Martha's house as the moment. Poetic, really. The scene of so many uncomfortable meals, so many times I'd felt like an outsider in Miles's family. Now it would be the scene of their destruction. That morning I dressed carefully. I needed to look put together, calm, in control. I dressed Sharon in the pink dress my mother had bought her. Let Miles think everything was normal. We drove to Martha's house at noon, just like we did every Sunday. Miles was in a good mood, whistling along to the radio. He had no idea. At Martha's house, she greeted us at the door with her usual fake warmth. "Come in, come in. Dinner's almost ready." We settled in the living room. Martha poured wine for herself and Miles. I declined, saying I was still nursing. The lie came easily now. I'd stopped nursing 2 days ago, pumping and dumping to dry up my supply. I wouldn't let that woman have even that connection to my daughter. We made small talk. They were so comfortable, so confident. They had no idea they were sitting in a trap. When Martha went to the kitchen to check on the roast, I made my move. "Miles," I said pleasantly, "I need to talk to you about something." He looked over at me, mildly curious. "What's up?" "I forgot to tell you. The security camera in our bedroom is working again. The technician fixed it last week." I watched his face carefully. For just a second there was panic. Pure, undiluted panic. Then he covered it, his expression smoothing out. "Oh, that's good. Is it?" I asked, my voice still pleasant. I thought so too. Until I checked the footage. The color drained from his face. Martha came back from the kitchen at that moment, smiling. Dinner's ready. She looked between us and froze. What's wrong? I stood up, still holding Sharon. I looked at them both. These monsters who had violated every trust, every vow, every boundary. I know, I said simply. I know everything. Miles stood up quickly. Claire. Don't. The word came out hard and sharp. Don't say my name. Don't come near me. Martha's face was a mask of confusion. What are you talking about? I laughed. It sounded slightly unhinged even to my own ears. You're really going to play dumb? Fine. Let me be clear. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the video file and held it out to them. It was cued to Friday morning. To them in bed together. Martha gasped. Miles lunged for the phone, but I stepped back. I have copies, I said. Multiple copies. In multiple locations. You can't destroy it. You're spying on us? Miles had the audacity to sound offended. It's my house. My bedroom. My security system. Claire, you don't understand, Martha started. I understand perfectly. My voice was cold now. I understand that you've been having an incestuous affair with your son. I understand that you've been sneaking into my house, into my bedroom. I understand that you involved my daughter in your sick games. We never touched her inappropriately. Miles said quickly. We would never. You undressed her. You brought her into your bed. I couldn't even say it. The image of Martha holding Sharon, simulating nursing. It's not what you think, Martha said, and her voice had changed. Harder. The mask was slipping. You wouldn't understand. What Miles and I have, it's special. It's beyond what you could comprehend. I stared at her. You're insane. I'm his mother. I gave birth to him. I raised him. Our bond is deeper than anything you could ever have with him. You're sick. You're both sick. Miles stepped toward me. Claire, listen. Yes, Mom and I have a relationship. But it doesn't change how I feel about you. We can make this work. We can all. All what? I interrupted. Be one big happy family. You think I would ever let you near me or my daughter again? Sharon is my daughter too, he said, and there was a threat in his voice now. Not for long, I said. I've filed for divorce. I've filed for a restraining order. I've contacted CPS and the police. I have evidence of child endangerment, fraud, embezzlement. I have everything. The room went silent. Martha recovered first. You have nothing. So what if Miles and I have an adult relationship? That's not illegal. And we never harmed Sharon. Any lawyer will tell you that you're overreacting. I have the best divorce attorney in the state. She disagrees. Miles was looking at me like he'd never seen me before. You've been planning this. All week you've been smiling at you, cooking your meals, playing the dutiful wife. I smiled and it felt like shards of glass. Yes, I've been pretending. Just like you've been pretending our entire marriage. 15 years, I continued. That's how long you've been fucking your mother. I found the photos. The hotel receipts. The money you've been stealing from us to pay for your twisted affair. Martha's face hardened. You little bastard. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Don't I? I pulled out another piece of paper. This is a report from a private investigator detailing your financial crimes, your gambling debts, your secret accounts. I've already sent copies to all the charity boards you sit on. By tomorrow morning, everyone will know what you really are. You can't, she started. I already have. It's done. I looked at Miles. I've also cleaned out our accounts, liquidated our investments. The money is somewhere you'll never find it. That's illegal, he shouted. That's theft. No, it's community property division. I'm entitled to half. I just took it early. I paused. Well, more than half. But you can try to fight me on it. In court. Where all the evidence of your incest and depravity will become public record. Miles's face went from red to white. You wouldn't. I would. I will. Unless, I paused. They both looked at me with desperate hope. Unless you sign papers terminating your parental rights to Sharon. Unless you agree to never contact me or my daughter again. Unless you disappear from our lives completely. Never, Miles said. She's my daughter. I love her. You used her as a prop in your sick fantasies with your mother. That's not love. We were trying to help her. Martha shrieked, and I realized she'd actually lost it. I can give her what you can't. I can be the mother she needs. I know how to raise a child properly, not like you with your modern nonsense and You're delusional, I said flatly. And you're never going to touch my daughter again. I headed for the door, Sharon clutched tight in my arms. Miles grabbed my arm. You can't just leave. We need to talk about this. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then up at his face. If you don't remove your hand in the next 3 seconds, I will start screaming. The neighbors will come. And I will show them the videos. He let go like I'd burned him. My attorney will be in touch, I said. Sign the papers or I release everything publicly. Your choice. I walked out of that house and never looked back. They didn't sign the papers. I didn't really expect them to. So I released everything. Not all at once. Strategically. Piece by piece. First, the information about Martha's financial impropriety went to the local news. A reporter I'd contacted anonymously fed the story carefully. Local charity board member under investigation for misuse of funds. It was enough to start the dominoes falling. The charity boards opened investigations. Found more irregularities than even I'd known about. Martha had been skimming. She was removed from all her positions. The social exile was immediate and absolute. Then I released the affair to the divorce court. Filed motions for emergency custody, which were granted based on the evidence. Miles was prohibited from seeing Sharon except under supervised visitation, which he never pursued. The restraining order was granted. Then when Martha tried to fight back, tried to file for grandparents' rights, tried to paint me as an unfit mother, I released the videos. Not publicly. Not yet. But to the judge. To CPS. To the police. The detective I'd spoken to earlier came back with news. They were pursuing charges. Child endangerment. Contributing to the delinquency of a minor. The DA thought they could make the charges stick. Miles and Martha lawyered up. Expensive attorneys. But what could they really say? The videos didn't lie. In the meantime, I filed for full custody and termination of parental rights. The hearing was set for 6 weeks out. Those 6 weeks were hell. Miles tried to contact me constantly. Emails, calls showing up at the house. I documented everything, reported every violation of the restraining order. Martha was more subtle. She tried to approach me at the grocery store once, reaching for Sharon's stroller. I called the police immediately. She was arrested for violating the restraining order. The look on her face as they cuffed her, impotent rage and disbelief, almost made up for everything. Almost. The scandal couldn't be contained in our small town. Whispers became shouts. People I'd known for years looked at me with pity, horror, fascination. Some blamed me. How could I not have known? I must have suspected something. What kind of wife? But most people were on my side. Especially after the details came out. Miles lost his job. The company didn't want the scandal attached to their name. Martha's house went into foreclosure. Her assets were seized to pay her debts. I watched their lives crumble with cold satisfaction. But it wasn't enough. Because at night I still saw them in my bed. Still saw Martha's hands on Sharon. Still felt the violation, the betrayal, the horror. No amount of legal victory could undo what they'd done. The custody hearing was brutal. Miles's attorney tried everything. Painted me as vindictive, as a spurned wife destroying a man out of jealousy. Your Honor, while my client admits to an inappropriate relationship with his mother, that doesn't make him an unfit father. The child was never harmed. Mrs. Fletcher is using this situation to punish my client and deny him his parental rights. But my attorney was better. Elizabeth Grant stood up with a binder full of evidence and systematically destroyed him. Your Honor, the defendant engaged in a long-term incestuous relationship with his mother. He lied to his wife for years. He stole marital assets. He brought his 3-month-old daughter into his bed for sexual scenarios with his mother. This is not a safe person for a child. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, watched the footage. All of it. When it was done, she looked at Miles with undisguised disgust. Mr. Fletcher, I have seen a lot of disturbing things in my courtroom. This ranks among the worst. You involved an infant in your sexual activities with your mother. You violated your wife's trust, your home, and most importantly, your daughter's safety and well-being. Your Honor, we never touched her inappropriately, Miles started. You undressed her. You brought her into a bed where you had just engaged in sexual activity with your mother. You exposed her to situations no child should ever be exposed to. The fact that you don't see the problem with this tells me everything I need to know about your fitness as a parent. She ruled in my favor on everything. Full custody to me. Parental rights terminated. Miles would have no legal relationship with Sharon. He would pay child support, a pittance since he was unemployed, until her 18th birthday, but he would have no visitation, no rights, no claim. Sharon was mine. Only mine. I should have felt triumphant. I'd won. But sitting in that courtroom hearing the details of my nightmare recounted in legal language, I felt hollow. Martha wasn't at the hearing. She'd been arrested 3 days prior on the criminal charges. She was out on bail, but her attorney had advised her not to attend. Miles sat at his table, head in his hands, destroyed. I felt nothing looking at him. The man I'd loved was gone. Or maybe he'd never existed in the first place. After the ruling, as I was leaving the courthouse with Sharon and my attorney, Miles called out, "Claire, please." I turned. Elizabeth put a hand on my arm, warning, but I shook her off. What? He looked terrible. Aged 10 years in the past few weeks. I'm sorry. I know you don't believe me, but I'm sorry. For which part? I asked. For screwing your mother? For stealing from me? For involving our daughter in your perversion? Which part are you sorry for, Miles? All of it. I was sick. I am sick. I know that now. You're only sorry because you got caught. No. I'm sorry because I hurt you. You and Sharon. You didn't deserve this. I laughed, bitter and sharp. You're right. We didn't. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at him for a long moment. This man who had been my husband, my partner, the father of my child. No, I said simply. I can't. And I won't. You destroyed everything. You took the life I thought I had and you revealed it was all a lie. So no, Miles. I will never forgive you. What about Sharon? When she's older, will you tell her about me? I'll tell her the truth. That her biological father was not a safe person. That I protected her from him. She can decide what to do with that information when she's an adult. She's my daughter, he said, and his voice broke. I love her. Then you should have protected her. You should have been a real father, not a monster. I turned and walked away, and I didn't look back. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of our new apartment 2 states away, watching Sharon play on the floor with her stacking rings. She was 9 months old now, starting to crawl, babbling constantly. She had no memory of what happened, of who Miles and Martha were. She would grow up knowing only me, only safety, only love. I'd left Connecticut the day after the custody hearing was finalized. Packed up what we needed, left everything else behind. New state. New job. I was teaching kindergarten again at a small school that didn't ask too many questions about my past. New name legally changed. Sharon's too. We were starting over. Miles had been convicted of child endangerment and fraud. He got probation, mandatory therapy, and a record that would follow him forever. Martha got 18 months in prison for her charges, plus financial penalties she'd never be able to pay. Their lives were over in all the ways that mattered. Mine was beginning again. But I was different now. Harder. More suspicious. I didn't trust easily. Maybe I never would again. I'd started therapy myself, working through the trauma, the betrayal, the violation. Some days were better than others. Sharon squealed with delight as she managed to stack 2 rings successfully. She looked up at me, her face bright with joy, seeking my approval. Good job, baby girl, I said, and she beamed. This is what mattered. This little person who depended on me, who trusted me to keep her safe. I'd failed once. I hadn't seen the danger in my own home, hadn't protected her from her own father and grandmother. But never again. I would be vigilant. I would be strong. I would be the mother she deserved. And if the nightmares still came sometimes, if I still sometimes woke up gasping seeing Martha's face over my bed, well, that was the price I paid. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I opened it. I'll always find you. You can't keep her from me forever. He's mine too. Jay. My blood ran cold, then hot with rage. I screenshotted the text, forwarded it to Elizabeth and to the detective handling the restraining order violations. Then I blocked the number. Miles wanted to play games? Fine. I'd beaten him before. I'd beat him again. Because I wasn't the naive, trusting woman I'd been 6 months ago. I was a mother protecting her child. And I would burn the whole world down before I let him near her again. Sharon crawled over to me, pulling herself up on my legs, babbling. I picked her up, held her close, breathed in her baby smell. "Mama," she said. Her first word. I started crying. "That's right, baby. Mama. Always mama. We would be okay. It would take time and work and vigilance. But we would be okay." And somewhere in Connecticut, Miles and Martha were living with the consequences of their choices. They'd tried to break me, tried to violate the most sacred things in my life. They'd failed. I was still standing. Still fighting. Still protecting what was mine. And that, I thought, holding my daughter close, was the best revenge of all. Sharon is almost 4 now. She's bright, funny, curious, and kind. She starts preschool next month and she's so excited about it that she talks about it constantly. She has no memory of Miles or Martha. When she asks about her daddy, I tell her age-appropriate truths. Your biological father made some bad choices and he's not in our lives. But you have Mommy and Grandma and Grandpa, my parents, and Aunt Lisa, my sister, and so many people who love you. It satisfies her for now. Someday she'll want more answers and I'll give them to her. But for now she's happy, secure, loved. We live a quiet life. I teach, she plays and grows. We have a small circle of trusted friends. I've started dating again cautiously. A nice man named Tom who teaches at the same school. He knows some of my history, not all of it, but enough. He's patient, gentle, and most importantly, he understands that Sharon comes first. Always. I still have moments where the past crashes over me like a wave. A smell, a sound, a scene on TV. Anything can trigger the memories. I still see that video footage sometimes when I close my eyes. Still feel the betrayal like a fresh wound. But therapy has helped. Time has helped. Distance has helped. Most of all, watching Sharon thrive has helped. Last month I got a letter. Forwarded through my attorney to protect my location. It was from Martha. She'd been released from prison after serving 14 months. The letter was long, rambling, full of justifications and delusions. She still didn't think she'd done anything wrong. She still believed that what she and Miles had was special and beyond normal understanding. She asked to see Sharon. Begged, actually. Said she had rights as a grandmother, said Sharon needed her. I burned the letter and didn't respond. She has no rights. The court made that clear. And Sharon doesn't need her, has never needed her. What Sharon needs is safety, stability, and love. And that's exactly what she has. Miles has tried to contact me 17 times in the past 3 years. Different numbers, different email addresses, even a letter sent to my parents' house once. Each time I document it and report it. He's violated his restrictions.